and welcome to The Skinny for Friday, November 1st. I'm Mitch Perry, political reporter with the Florida Phoenix, joined by my editor-in-chief of Creative Living, Ray Roa. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Mitch. How was your Halloween? Did you get a lot of good candy?
I still have all of it, actually. I got no kids.
Oh, man.
I'm very upset about that.
You have lots of treats for us on this show.
I saw your photo of it. You were out and about.
We were in Hampton Terrace. The Chief Burkott was out there. Saw the mayor driving around.
All right. Have you voted yet, Ray?
I voted. I'm done. My kid came with me and everything.
Well, of course, this is our last show before the election, and we're going to talk a lot about things on the ballot here in the Bay Area and Florida as well. And we want to get you involved in the program. Later in the show, we'll open up the phones to get you talking about this. But we're going to start off right now with what's been going on. Of course, we've had voting by mail for weeks now and early voting for about a week and a half or so right now. Bring up right now Matthew Isbell. Matt is a data consultant when it comes to elections and really a guru about all things numbers-wise about Florida elections. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, guys. How are you doing?
Good to have you here with us. Of course, people can find your stuff on your website, mcimaps.com. You also have your own Substack account. So, Matt, this is the deal right now. As of this morning, more than 6.7 million Floridians have voted in early voting or voting by mail. And I want to get your thoughts about that because I did the calculation this morning. It looks like roughly of all the people who voted, 44.5% are Republicans, 33% Democrats, and the remaining, I guess, 23% are NPA or third-party groups. Is that how it's looking to you right now?
Yeah, that is how it's looking right now. We're seeing basically right around that share of Republicans is around 45%. That's heavily due to their strong voting in-person early voting. The in-person voting right now leans around 50% of it's Republican to 27% Democrat, while the Democrats maintain a lead with the vote by mail by about 42 to 35. And we still have election day to go in the weekend early voting in several of the big counties.
So do you expect the Democrats to make up some of that number in the next few days?
I think they have a good chance to close the gap a little bit, especially on Sunday when we have Souls to the Polls events in the black churches in a lot of big counties. Though it should be noted, I do expect the Republicans to maintain a pretty firm lead in vote cast. And that's largely because, even with this current gap in vote cast, that is not because of a massive turnout issue among Democrats, as like in terms of the two parties getting a percent of their registration out. The Democrats only trail in turnout, like their percent of Democrats, by only about 3.5%. They've gotten out about 50% of their voters, and the Republicans have gotten out 53.5%. The issue is for Democrats is that the Republicans have such a large registration advantage in the state that even if there was even turnout, the Republicans would still have a big lead. The Republican lead in turnout, the Republican lead in registration is 8%, so it's pretty big.
Okay, I thought it was 7. Yeah, 39 to 31. Is that how it breaks down?
Yeah, right around that, 39 to 31. Yeah.
Okay, right. And then the 26% NPA, 3% third party, roughly 29%. So, Matt, let's talk about down here in the Tampa Bay area. Right now in Hillsborough County, Republicans have a 2.5 percentage advantage in votes cast over Democrats so far. In Pinellas County, it's larger than that, 4.7%. I think this is my thought going into this race. I've been saying this the last couple of weeks, actually. I think every Democrat in Hillsborough County has to be a bit vulnerable. We have seen the voter registration gap here drop dramatically from just 4 years ago when there was over 73,000 more Democrats than Republicans registered in the county to just about 5,000 more Democrats versus Republicans. And then you've got so far, again, an advantage for Republicans. So, I mean, that's my thought about the Democrats in Hillsborough County. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, Hillsborough is definitely like a key battleground in this state in the election. Like when we really think about, it's very likely, Donald Trump will win Florida statewide. This is definitely a likely Republican state. But there's so many local battles, county commission, the state attorney race over there, and in other counties as well. I think that we will see, Democrats are certainly hoping for this, but there is a big pool of Democratic voters still to cast ballots in Hillsborough, especially black voters and student voters. And historically, these voters tend to vote more on the weekend before voting or Election Day itself. Election Day itself, while it has historically in the last several years been much more Republican, we are starting to see more and more of like just the hardcore super voters showing up early now. Like a lot of Republican super voters have already cast ballots, and there's a lot of super voters, and by that I mean people with strong voting history that are black and younger, and Democrats that have not voted yet in places like Hillsborough. So as long as they show up, and I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but if they do show up and their history says they have a voting history, then that could narrow that gap. And if we go into it where Hillsborough has essentially a near tie in its vote cast, or maybe even if it leans a little bit Republican, the key thing then is going to be that large batch of independents, which are, really going to be the kingmakers here in places like Hillsborough.
Now, again, we're speaking with Matt Isbell. He's a data expert here in Florida elections here. Democratic Party Chair Nikki Fried is attempting to eliminate the Republican supermajority in the Florida House specifically. I believe they've targeted over a dozen races. Do you have any predictions, thoughts about how many seats, if any, that they're going to be able to gain this year?
I do. If turnout kind of remains as we're seeing it, and we don't see any, as long as we don't see a Democratic collapse in turnout over the next few days, then I do expect the supermajority will be broken. There are several races, especially in the Orlando area and down in Miami-Dade, that are vulnerable for Republicans. Seats like Fasabe and 106. Seats like 37, 38 in Orlando. Tampa Bay doesn't have as much just because of the way the map is. But I think, like, for example, over in Pinellas, I think Lindsey Cross will be fine for the Democrats. But I don't think the Democrats have any real good pickup opportunities in the area. But I do believe that they'll be able to break the supermajority unless things go, I would say, tragically wrong for them.
Right. Well, like it did 2 years ago when the voter participation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of districts that the Democrats lost in 2022. Places like HD 47, like when Carlos Smith lost in HD 37, that realistically, these are seats that voted for Biden by double digits are very likely to vote for Harris by solid margins. And they were lost because of historically bad turnout that I'm not seeing in those districts this time. I'm seeing a lot more. Like, I was seeing warning signs for those districts 2 years ago at this time, and I'm not seeing that now. So some of them I feel are like low-hanging fruits for Democrats.
Now, you wrote a post a couple of weeks ago about how Ron DeSantis has, quote, weaponized state agencies against both the weed and the abortion rights amendments, Amendments 3 and 4. That has continued. In fact, the Smart and Safe Florida folks, the advocacy group behind Amendment 3, they said last week that DeSantis had used $50 million in taxpayer funds to advocate against Amendment 3. Gosh knows how much it is Amendment 4. But, Matt, this is something we've never seen before. And how do you think this is going to affect those big amendments that we're all looking at on Tuesday night?
This is like a really disturbing weaponization of the state. It got worse after I posted that article. And it is definitely a situation where we've never seen this in modern politics. Like, it is not unprecedented in that this is the stuff that used to be done by, like, the old political machines back in the 1890s and 1900s. This is the stuff you would see Tammany Hall do in New York City, where you weaponize the state government to push either against different candidates or ballot measures or whatnot. It'd be one thing if Ron DeSantis was just, running a campaign to oppose it and raising money and doing some speeches. That's not out of the norm. It is that, like, I go on Twitter any moment and I see sponsored ads by the Department of Children and Families trying to say, oh, this weed is worse than it's ever been before. This isn't the stuff of the 60s. And it's like, we have medical marijuana in this state forever. And, and then against Amendment 4 as well, just like threatening TV stations and all this. It's very distressing. And it is a situation where you worry that this is just going to become the new normal. And what other governors in other states are going to look at this as a new model? So I'm very concerned about it.
Matt, that's all the questions we had for you. Anything else you want to tell our listeners as we go into election weekend and election day next Tuesday?
I would say for anybody out there that's really watching the early voting data, don't get too obsessed with it. I try to add as much nuance as I can. Here's what the data looks like, but here's, for example, who's outstanding, who might still vote. I'd say if you want to be involved in this, get out, canvass, door knock, phone calls. Don't look at my spreadsheets for a couple minutes, but don't obsess over them.
Right.
and just keep at it. We've got four or so days left.
Matt Isbell, thank you so much for joining us here on The Skinny here on WMNF.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's Matt Isbell. You can see his work at mcimaps.com. Now we're going to look at what has been hyped as one of the most competitive congressional races here in Florida. The only one, really, the 28 seats that are up for election. And that's, of course, across the bay from here until Tampa. Pinellas County's 13th congressional district race. And that, of course, is the seat where it's held currently by Republican Anna Paulina Luna. She's considered to be safe, what some people would say, is she beat Eric Lynn by 8 points in 2022. But Democrat Whitney Fox thinks she has a legitimate shot at knocking off the freshman legislator, and she's joining us right now via Zoom. Good morning, Whitney.
Good morning, Mitch. Thanks so much for having me.
Great to have you here with us. So you have made basically now, you've run a really strong campaign, but it's tough, Whitney. We know that I believe this is at least a +5 district, Republican +5. We said that Luna won it by 8 points last year, and yet, or 2 years ago, and yet you have you've ran this race thinking that you can knock her off here. So how is it going right now as we go into the last few days of the election?
Yes, Mitch. I mean, it's going quite well, actually. You are spot on that it is a Republican district, and I'm happy to say we've got a lot of support from Republicans, independents, and Democrats. I mean, a third of the voters are independent voters, and we have talked to many Republicans who are fed up with the fact that Luna, they gave her a shot. She did nothing with her time in Congress except cause chaos, chase culture war headlines, and the facts are in her record. So they are looking for a pragmatic leader who's actually going to go to Washington, D.C. and fight for the people of Pinellas County. And that's what they see in my candidacy. And that's why we're doing so well. And that's why we're going to win in a few days. You
tweeted this morning, quote, "The day before Hurricane Helene, Luna voted against disaster aid. And the days that followed, she was busy attention seeking at an out-of-state rally instead of helping us recover. Luna has shown us what her priorities are, and we're not one of them." This has been your message, that she is out of the mainstream of Pinellas County Republicans historically here. And yet, she's supported by Donald Trump. And these days, that's pretty magic in the Republican ranks. So a lot of Republicans are going to have to switch sides here to go for you. I know that anecdotally, I know you talk often that you meet Republicans who say that they're going to vote for you. Is it going to be enough to do this, along with, of course, the NPA vote here?
Yes, I think that the voters here in Pinellas County are honest, hardworking people, and they gave Anna Paulina Luna a shot, and she took it for granted. She thought she's in a safe district, so she doesn't have to answer to the people. That's why she won't debate me. That's why she's never held a single town hall. And that's why she's just continued to do whatever it takes to get headlines and to grow her social media following. And we are going to see what that has gotten her in the election in a few days, because the people in Pinellas County are fed up with it. And regardless of party affiliation, they want someone who's actually going to get the job done. And that's what we're running on. We are talking to voters. We hear their concerns about affordable housing. We hear their concerns about rising costs of home insurance. We hear their concerns about their own reproductive freedoms. And we are addressing these issues. And that's what we deserve in a leader, is somebody who's going to listen to the voters, what they care about, regardless of party affiliation. We are bringing people together. And that's why I have so many Republicans supporting me. I got a phone call yesterday from someone saying, "Whitney, I am a lifelong Republican. I have never voted for a Democrat, and I voted for you today, and so did my entire family," because they know that I'm here to work for them, regardless of party affiliation.
Whitney, this is one of these historic elections where abortion is on the ballot, and you said you're engaging with people on all sides of the aisle and political ideologies, but abortion seems to be something that a lot of Democrats are watching. How much are you running into Republicans or maybe pro-life folks who are going to vote for Amendment 4, but maybe really on the fence about voting for you, or even Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket?
Sure. Well, I think we are telling them about the message about the fact that, of course, we have to pass Amendment 4. We must protect our reproductive rights. However, passing Amendment 4 is going to mean nothing if we have extremists like Anna Paulina Luna in office who supports a national abortion ban without exceptions. So we can focus on Amendment 4. We can pass Amendment 4, but it will mean nothing if we have someone like her in office that is able to pass a national abortion ban. And this is an issue that I am really excited about, because people are learning so much about what abortion care actually means. I'm meeting voters. They are sharing their stories with me. I tell this story often of of a woman who came up to me at a playground when I'm with my two girls at the playground wearing my campaign shirt. And she said, "Are you Whitney Fox running for Congress against Anna Paulina Luna?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, this is my 5-year-old son. I have to tell you, after him, I had a miscarriage. And if I didn't receive the abortion care I had, then my 2-year-old daughter would not be here today." This is an issue that people are fired up about, not just about abortion care and health care, but also about protecting IVF and protecting contraception. I've spoken to many Republican women who have said, "Well, wait a minute, my children are here because of IVF, or I'm going through IVF right now." This is a really big issue for people because it hits so close to home. And that's why we are going to see people showing up in droves voting. We're already seeing it, that people care about this issue and they are going to cross party lines on this issue.
Again, we're talking to Whitney Fox. She's a Democrat running in Congressional District 13 in Pinellas County against Republican incumbent Anna Paulina Luna, who we did reach out to this week to bring her on the program. I spoke or emailed her campaign manager. She basically said she's out too busy this week doing campaign events. In fact, I'll go cover her probably on Monday in Clearwater. So we definitely did reach out to Congresswoman Luna to try to get her on the program. Whitney, before we let you go here, a couple of things I want to ask you about. You talked about affordable housing. You did come out with a plan a couple days ago. Can you talk a little bit about that you see this on the federal level to deal with one of the biggest crises that we're dealing with in the Tampa Bay area and in Florida and throughout the country for that matter?
Yes, well, I mean, this is, again, a number one issue that I'm hearing from the voters, and rightfully so. We have these large corporations that have come into Pinellas County and swooped up thousands of single-family homes and raised the rent by 300%. I mean, I went to a firefighter Ops 101 day here with our Pinellas County firefighters and spoke to many of them, asking them about the issues they care about, and realized that many of our firefighters don't even live in Pinellas County because they can't afford to do so. I mean, my own mother, who raised me as a single mom, she was the first nurse at Moffitt Cancer Center. She's still a nurse there to this day. She is a hardworking person, and she just recently, a few years ago, was able to purchase her first piece of property, a small, quaint condo that she's very proud of. And now that she gets close to retirement, she's worried if she's going to be able to afford to continue living there. And this is the story I'm hearing from so many people in the district, especially with a large senior population who are on fixed incomes as housing continues to rise in costs. So there are many things that we can do at a federal level. We need to keep these large corporations in check. We need to expand programs for first-time home buyers and provide down payment assistance and lower interest rates. There are things we can do at a federal level. We just need serious people in office who are going to actually make these a priority.
Now, also, of course, Pinellas County just racked so hard from Hurricane Helene in particular. Do you see anything there? I know federally we're talking about the National Flood Insurance Program, which so many people don't have with their policies right now. Do you see trying to do anything with that, improve that, make that a little bit easier for people to get that in Pinellas County?
Yes, well, I mean, these two hurricanes have been devastating to our district. I mean, right after Hurricane Helene, I was in people's homes helping pull out soaking wet mattresses out of their houses. People were so distraught. Homes that have never, ever flooded now having 5 feet, 6 feet of water in their homes. Many people have been displaced. Many people in Pinellas County are struggling, and it is going to be so important that we have the leaders in office who are going to work hard to make sure we build the correct way and that we are bringing funds back to the district and back to our community. Anna Paulina Luna, of all of the members of Congress, has a record of bringing back the least amount of funding. She is not capable of providing the leadership our district is going to need to rebuild after these storms. And one of the issues I hear most about is a home insurance. That was a huge problem before the hurricanes hit. And guess what? It's not going to get better after the hurricanes. And so that's why we are supporting, I'm putting a plan together in place. What I suggest is a national natural disaster protection program. We need to do what we can at a federal level to bring down the cost of home insurance because it's not being addressed at a state level.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Whitney Fox, a Democrat running in CD 13. She's on the ballot there in Pinellas County. Election day is Tuesday. Whitney Fox, best of luck to you on Tuesday.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, and we're going to stay in Pinellas County with another election, Ray, and Ben's now here. Hi,
Welcome, Ben.
So we're going to now go to a Pinellas County Commission, a very competitive race there. We mentioned earlier that Pinellas County, so far, Republicans about 5% are outvoting Democrats there, and that's got to be alarming for any Democrat. So in Pinellas County Commission, there is a countywide race between Democratic incumbent Charlie Justice and his GOP challenger, Vince Nowicki. I did reach out to Mr. Nowicki earlier this week. He did not get back to me, but Charlie Justice did, and he's with us via Zoom from Pinellas. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good. Great to have you here with us. Now, you nearly won re-election to a third term in 2020 over Republican Tammy Vasquez, and it's a redder district now, or redder. Pinellas is redder now than it was in 2020. So, Charlie, kind of the same question we asked at Whitney Fox. You know, it seems like it's a little tougher these days for Democrats everywhere in Florida, including Pinellas County. How are you going to do it this time around against Vince Nowicki?
Well, I think I think 2020 was an aberration in a lot of ways, Mitch. It was the COVID year. We couldn't campaign. Everyone was running their campaigns on Zoom, and that's very different. And the last year, as I've been in the last several years, I'm at every Rotary Club, Kiwanis Club, Sertoma Club, neighborhood association. I'm out and about talking to voters, and we're getting some good stuff done. We're getting the important work done for our community. And I think you're going to see a very different turnout this time.
That'll be interesting. Now, let's see here. Vince Nowicki said he decided to run this summer because when you first ran, you talked about how Pinellas beaches were overcrowded and roads were too congested. Nowicki went on to say, quote, "If you look at from when he took office to today, we have no beaches because they're eroded away and haven't been renourished. We have more development, more traffic, more people in Pinellas County than ever before." Maybe that's true, maybe that's not. I don't know how that's directly your fault, but nevertheless, he's running hard with you on that record. But you think that, Charlie, you've been around now, this will be your fourth term if you get reelected here. You've been there. Of course, you were a state legislator for 10 years before that. So talk about it. I mean, obviously, the county, as we talked with Whitney Fox, is going through a lot of crisis right now with the recent storms. Let's say on the beach nourishment issue, where are we on that these days?
Well, to be fair, and just to be straight, my opponent lies a lot. And he lies about a lot of different things, but specifically about beach nourishment. We have nourished our beaches. We continually do that. We spent $25 million last year after Idalia. We have been taking care of the beaches. And we have a fund set aside from our tourist taxes, which funds half a penny of that every year goes into a trust fund to do these projects. The issue lately has been the Army Corps of Engineers has given us headaches with some of our north beaches, nourishing those because of easement requirements. But we'll continue to work with our federal partners on getting language that would allow us to do that. But we have a healthy reserve to pay for beach nourishment. He went out and took pictures right after a storm and said, "See, it's all gone." He misleads voters on this really, really important issue. Trust me, this entire commission knows how important our beaches are to our tourism. How important our tourism is to our industry here, that there's over 100,000 families in Pinellas County that rely for their jobs some way, shape, or form on tourism, and we're never going to not take care of that.
Well, let's talk about tourism, of course, and let's connect that with the Tampa Bay Rays. You support the county's investment of $312 million in tourist tax money for a new ballpark for the Rays. The county's share of that cost will come from revenue generated by the bed tax, which can be only used for tourist-related and economic development expenses. I'm sure you stand by that vote today, but obviously with the hurricanes certainly putting a hurting on the county and its tourism opportunities for the next year. Let's talk about for right now, Charlie, the issue with tourism, with the motels down there. I mean, I'm hearing contradictory information about how back the Pinellas County barrier island beaches are. What's going on there?
It's like it is when you see any part of our community. Some facilities, hotels, restaurants are 100% back doing great, and some have been devastated. And so I don't have a percentage in front of me, but some have been greatly impacted, but some are back up. I tell you, if I've learned anything that I didn't before in this after the cycle is restaurant owners are the most resilient people I've ever met in my life. They get washed out and they are back the next day trying to get open and trying to serve. And so a lot of our places are back up. And again, we are severely restricted by Florida statute on what we can use that fund for. We can't use it for hurricane recovery type activities. We can't use it for typical government services. It's very limited on what you can do. beach nourishment, marketing your destination, and yes, cultural facilities and sports stadiums. And we have invested in all of those things, like the Salvador Dali Museum, the Arts and Crafts Museum, the Holocaust Museum, the Clearwater Aquarium, things that prime the pump of tourism. And of course, we spend a lot of money on our beaches.
We are speaking with Pinellas County Commissioner Charlie Justice. He's a Democrat running for re-election on Tuesday for a fourth term in Pinellas County. Speaking of term, there's term limits that are on the ballot, a charter amendment on the ballot in Pinellas County. And Charlie, you know this very well. This is controversial because the folks in Pinellas way back in the 90s voted for term limits that never took effect. Essentially, the courts ruled on that, and it's kind of an esoteric way that they ruled on that. That isn't happening here. You've obviously enjoyed your time there. You're going for 4 more years there. Are you going to? Are you voting yes or no on that term limit issue?
I think I'm supporting it. I've supported putting it on the ballot. I tell you, Mitch, I'm not an anti-term limit. I'm not pro-term limit. I don't think it's the end-all solution to people's problems. We see some politicians running. If we have term limits, that'll solve all our problems. It won't solve all our problems. But I will tell you that Pinellas County over the years has enjoyed having leadership that has longevity. We had a congressman here for 40 years that got reelected every time, the same time the term limits got passed. We've had state legislators and senators that get reelected time and time again. We like that longevity. People feel that 12 years is the right amount for commission. If the voters put that, that's what we'll live under. But that is not the number one problem that people are facing today.
Yeah, and just our remaining minute here. What is basically your platform here where you're telling people why they should give you another 4 more years?
We have focused on the issues I think that are important. We focus on the important work. And I can tell you in my time on the commission, we recognized that before the hurricanes, affordability was an issue. That's why this commission, 3 out of the last 4 years, we've cut the property tax rates. Under my initiative, we had doubled the homestead exemption for low-income seniors in Pinellas County. We have focused on public safety. Serious crime is down 63%, and we're taking care of our quality of life. We've added 226 acres of green space in the last several years to protect from overdevelopment. So, look, I didn't just move here. This is my home. I was born and raised here. My family, I've raised my family here. I want to live here forever. I want my daughters to feel that same way. That's why I do the work I do. That's why I focus on the issues I focus on. And I would be honored if people would support me for 1 more term.
He is Charlie Justice. He is running for another 4-year term against Republican Vince Nowicki, who, again, we did invite on the show. Vince decided not to participate. Charlie Justice, best of luck to you on Tuesday.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All righty. All right, folks. Now we're going to move into the panel discussion today, and we're going to talking about all the elections coming up on Tuesday here in Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Florida. So let's bring in our guests here, and that includes in studio. We've got Brittany Wissey, who is the president of the Tampa Bay Young Republicans, which bills itself as the second largest young Republican club in the nation. Hi, Brittany.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Great to have you here in studio.
Hi to Doug.
Yes.
You might be hearing the cooing of her young son. How old is Doug?
He is 1 month.
Oh, that's awesome.
This
Congratulations.
Is
so cool, man.
It's so touching.
Brittany, is there any way you can move over so I can get a chance to see? Okay, I'll move over to her. And by the way, so we've got Brittany here. We've also got on the line via Zoom, we've got Carla Correa with the Democratic Socialists of America. Carla, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. And also, we've got Lars Hafner. Lars is a Democrat who served in the Florida House of Representatives from 1988 to 2000 and now acts as a political analyst for 10 Tampa Bay. Lars, good morning.
Good morning.
Great to have you all with us. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with you, Brittany. We've got a lot of races, obviously, locally, statewide. We got the presidential race. What are the race or a couple of elections that you're really focusing on as we go into election next Tuesday?
Right. So the Tampa Bay Young Republicans have obviously been very focused on the presidential race. You know, here in Florida, we feel like it's very safe. Donald Trump is going to win this state. So aside from that, we have just been working on getting people out to the polls. We've been working with Turning Point Action and a texting campaign. Our club personally has sent out over 400,000 text messages to almost every voter that we have information for in Hillsborough County to remind them to turn in their mail-in ballots, to send them our voting cards, and to just get them out there. And we are really focused on the amendments as well as the school board referendum that they want to raise our property taxes. So we've been encouraging people to vote no on that one.
What about on 3 and 4? Where's the Young Republicans on those issues on marijuana and abortion rights?
Yes, so the Tampa Bay Young Republicans we did a straw poll where we polled our members, and that's how we make our voting cards. So over 60% of our members have decided that they would like the club to put out that we would support Amendment 3. Personally, I am against Amendment 3, so I will not be supporting it. But the club has put out that they will be supporting Amendment 3, and then obviously to vote no on Amendment 4. We are very much against that one.
Okay. I didn't know it was obvious with the young Republicans, maybe. Some Republicans are definitely going to be supporting Amendment 4. Carla, let's go to you. Any specific elections or races that you're really focused on?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the most important ones is that property tax referendum for the schools that Brittany had mentioned. I'm working really hard to make sure that gets passed, because I just want people to know, anybody who's listening, if that doesn't pass, that will mean an over $6,000 pay cut for our teachers. And that money funds school trips, it funds technology, it funds our literacy programs. It funds so much in our public schools and also our charter schools, thanks to the state. So we definitely need that one to pass. And also, of course, Amendment 4. I mean, we need the right to abortion. DSA has been working overtime trying to get that one passed. Amendment 3 is super important, of course, the legalization of marijuana. So those are the biggest ones on my radar, and of course, the presidential election.
And we should say that you're in Pinellas, of course, Carla. Brittany's in here in Hillsborough. Both Hillsborough and Pinellas have referendums on schools, a tax there, a property tax referendum. Hillsborough also, of course, has another tax, and we can get into that a little later, the CIT. But anyway, so that's going on there. Lars, what are the races that you're focusing on?
Well, I'm looking at the overall state and the influence that Harris at the top of the ticket for the Democrats, what will that do to the women's vote here in the state of Florida? Will that translate into the Powell-Scott race being closer than what we might imagine just because of the enthusiasm gap and the women turning out? And then as you go down here in Pinellas, of course, you already had Whitney Fox on today, but the Fox-Luna race, again, will the women's vote influence that race in any capacity? Then if you look at the legislative races, I'm kind of interested to see whether the House can win back 4 or 5 seats for the Democrats to keep the Republicans from continuing to have a supermajority. And then, of course, the school board races, because the governor has put so much emphasis on winning school board races, and he did so poorly in the primary, losing several of those races. But now in the general, either he will get his candidate in or the candidate that opposes him will get in, and we'll kind of see what those numbers look like. So we'll see how much sway the governor actually still has. And then down, of course, to the amendments, how will that take place, especially as you already talked about 3 and 4. But I'm a little interested in number 1, too, looking at education, thinking education, perhaps sheriff and supervisor of elections should stay nonpartisan because they shouldn't have a political bent to them. I'm interested in how Amendment 1 goes, because if Amendment 1 passes and we go to party recognition for that amendment, then will sheriff and supervisor of elections and others follow in the future.
Right, partisan school board races, which is very hot. You just mentioned, Lars, about DeSantis weighing in on these school board races, and there is one race there in Pinellas. That's
Yes.
Katie Blacksburg versus Stacey Grier. We had Katie Blacksburg on a few weeks ago, actually, who is a Republican, but she's not the favorite of Ron DeSantis here. So that's going to be interesting. Also, I'm going to ask both Carla, stay with Carla and Lars for a moment. You're both in St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg is also voting on city council elections. And this is the first time, right, this has ever happened on a presidential ballot. St. Pete has historically voted on like 2019, 2023, these odd years, as it were. And the charter amendment, I believe now this is the first time you get more voter participation. But then the negative people say is it gets lost with all these other top of the ticket races. So starting with you, Carla, what do you think about the fact that you are voting for city council races on Tuesday?
I think it's a good thing. I think it encourages voter turnout in our local elections, which are super important because a lot of the issues that we face here locally are able to be addressed by the city council. So, overall, I think it's a good thing. And for those races, I'm not particularly, both races, there's District 7, Wengay Newton versus Corey Givens, and then there's District 3, Pete Boland versus Mike Harding. I mean, the District 3, that's just two conservatives, and then District 7, people with pretty similar politics. So, in that sense, I think it's a good thing. But also, like, for me, voting is just, for everybody, voting is just one day, that one thing that we do every 2 to 4 years. But what really matters is what we do on the day-to-day to try to, push the policies that we need to address the issues here.
And Lars, your thought about the city council elections this Tuesday?
Well, Mitch, you may remember I was the chair of the commission, or the review commission for the city when we put that on the ballot. So heard a lot of discussion amongst my colleagues on the commission, as well as people that came in to testify in that process. And you're right, the downside to it is that the races get lost in the process when it's in the presidential year. And but the community felt like having it in the presidential year is an opportunity to get more votes and more people engaged. But it'll be interesting this year in particular, because this ballot is so loaded from the president's race all the way down to the amendments that I think people will stay engaged on the ballot. In the past, we know that there's been a lot of fall off after maybe the president, maybe the Senate race, and people not going all the way down. But because of the amendments, I think that's going to pull people all the way through. And I think, again, a good thing for St. Petersburg is that these races are nonpartisan races. So people will have either had to do their homework, or they'll flip a coin when they come to the names, or they'll pick the name they like best on the ballot. But it kind of kept the party politics out of it, so that St. Petersburg can continue to kind of have a bipartisan type city council. And that's a good thing.
Brittany, let me ask you, you talked about straw polling, your club. In the past, we've talked to you. You're very in touch with the sentiment and the feelings within your club. You know your people in there. The Democrats have spent the last 8 years or so basically running and saying we're not Donald Trump and things like that. And is there any sentiment within your club that's growing a little bit exhausted with Donald Trump's brand of Republican, values and things like that? How much do people want to kind of get away from some of that keeps them in the headlines so much?
Right. So we did see that during the primary. Our club did choose to endorse Ron DeSantis for president. And it was a close poll. Within our club, it was about 65-45. But now that Donald Trump is the candidate, I think some of us, we might be ready to move on, and we're ready to get someone younger. That's really the sentiment, is we want younger candidates so that we can vote for somebody who looks more like us and who understands our struggles. Donald Trump is a great candidate, but he's almost 80 years old.
He's the old guy now.
Yes. Yeah. So that is what we're seeing, is we want younger candidates. And I know, you've mentioned Anna Paulina Luna and Whitney Fox's race over in Pinellas County. It's exciting because they're both young women, and we don't see that very often. So while obviously I'm friends with Anna Paulina Luna, and I hope that she wins, and I encourage people to go out and vote for her, it's just exciting to see young women on the ballot. And that's really what our club is focusing on in the future.
Do any of the three of you think that the presidential race in Florida will be closer than the polls have predicted so far?
I don't really think so. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think so, only in the sense that, again, the tremendous women's vote. I think that the DeSantis victory that everyone's judging the state on was an anomaly because of the situation running against a tired candidate that the Democrats put up in Charlie Crist, who wasn't funded. And so therefore, Trump still may have his way in Florida at a pretty good sized margin, but it won't come close to the DeSantis margin.
Right. Yes, I do agree with Lars on that. I don't think he'll win by 20 points, but I don't think it will be close. I think he has a very good shot at a clear majority here in Florida.
Hey, Carla, before we go to you, I know you're the DSA. I don't know what you think, your thoughts about, the Israeli Gaza situation, Gaza with Hamas. I know that has been a turnoff for some younger voters in terms of what Joe Biden was running on, and now we've got Harris. What are your thoughts there? And are you a supporter of Kamala Harris actually voting for president there?
Yeah, so I think here in Florida, we're going to see a huge turnout in third-party voters. I personally am voting third party. Donald Trump, on his face, he's racist, he's a warmonger. And then when we look at Kamala, she's basically pushing the same policies. And I think a lot of young people can see that. And it's almost like she clearly doesn't want our vote, so she's not getting it. And so, I personally am supporting the Party for Socialism and Liberation candidate, Claudia Dela Cruz and Karina Garcia. I mean, when we look at what's happening in Gaza, when we look at, the policies that have led up to, the genocide taking place, that's a red line for me and a lot of young people and a lot of progressive people. So, no, I mean, she's not getting our vote. She's been overseeing this genocide just as much as Joe Biden, and she's not really saying anything to make it better. And that's just on the Gaza issue. But when we look at when she talks about migrants and she talks about the migrant crisis, in her latest ad, one of her newest ads, she's bragging about, I supported the toughest border control bill in decades, and she's promising to hire thousands more border agents. And that's, it's like Trump's talking about mass deportation, so the Democrats really aren't offering a clear alternative or program for working people. So I think we will see an uptick in third-party voters this year.
Carla, what do you say to the people who just say, can you just be quiet for 6 more days and let this, is it 6 days? How many do we have left?
4.
Just pull the switch for Kamala and let's get past this, to people like you. What do you say to them?
To those people, I would say look around. Look at our material conditions. Everything is getting worse under the Democrats. Our democratic rights are being rolled back. We're not seeing any progress in environmental policy. We're seeing racism getting worse. We're literally under a genocide. And you know why we're seeing all this under Democrats is because of that exact mentality. Just like, shut up, we got to support the lesser of the two evils. And then so all the Democrats have to do is be like a tiny bit less evil than the Republicans. What is that? We can't accept that. I would guess a lot of people are tired of the two-party system, and we're never going to rid ourselves of the two-party system if we just keep falling in line with whatever the Democrats want to do.
Okay, let's go to our phones and actually got a text in here responding to Carla right now. Greg writes in, a no vote or a vote for a third party is a vote for Trump. Please stress this, writes Greg. Let's go to our callers. We've got a couple on the line. Let's go to Bob. Bob, you're on the Skinny here. Hello, Bob.
Hey, Bob, you there? I might want to hit it one more time.
One more time. I'm sorry. Okay.
There he is.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that.
No, that was our phone.
So my question was, earlier we were talking about the flood and such like that. Since Scott was in office, the DEP has been gutted. He wanted development to occur quickly, and it is occurring quickly, even in Pinellas County. And a lot of the developments that are going in are in marginal areas that a lot of it was left over from former wetland mitigation projects. And the state's not really doing it because not the DEP is incompetent. First of all, it's gutted, but they're not allowed to do their job. So is the county going to come in, or are any of these legislatures going to propose hiring more people for DEP to do its state-mandated job? Because as of now, it's not doing it. And, we're giving tax breaks to corporations to come in and people to move here, but we're actually putting them in harm's way. And they're not aware of that because they haven't lived in Florida for a long time and don't know what's happened. So I'm not hearing any kind of policy on dealing with this problem of not having a functioning Department of Environmental Protection and protecting these wetlands, which has been made even more difficult by the Supreme Court decision to do away with half the wetlands. And Manatee County is actually revising its development laws to build in a lot of these areas.
Right. All right, Bob. Thank you for the call. I'm sorry to cut you off there. Charlie Justice would have been the guy to ask there, but of course we just had him on for a few minutes there. That's really very relevant in terms of talking about the DEP and what's going on with our environmental policy here. We really don't think we have anybody to respond to that. Chris in Clearwater. Let's go to Chris here for a moment.
Good morning. Is Commissioner Justice on the line today?
No, he's not.
He was
sorry, Chris. Yeah.
I just wanted to bring up again, because it's relevant in the news, the main plank of this platform, as well as Commissioner Janet Long's back when they were elected in 2012, was to bring water fluoridation.
Yeah.
Which they did, and of course they were the commissioners, 2 new commissioners who replaced other commissioners who had voted to end it, which we had succeeded in 2011 in doing. And so they had the votes needed to re-implement water fluoridation. Well, now, just over a month ago, there was a ruling in a federal court that the EPA does have to regulate it because it is a developmental neurotoxin. And that decision is Food and Water Watch versus United States EPA. So what they found was that because it affects IQ, that the EPA does have to regulate it. And we have many municipalities around the country who are ending it. We could save over $100,000.
Okay, so Chris, let's get to the upshot here. I know you're very critical of that. What do you want to have happen in Pinellas County when it comes to fluoride?
Well, to pay attention to the will of the overwhelming supermajority who appeared on the day that, which was November 29th, 2012, to oppose water fluoridation. And because we have so much infrastructure damaged by the recent hurricanes that needs to be repaired and reinforced, we could save over $100,000 per year to put it towards better use. And, we had a supermajority, as I said, who addressed the commission and couldn't fit into the meeting room, so they had to be shuttled in and out of the meeting room as we spoke.
Thank you, Chris. Got you there. We've got, let's see, another Charles writing in. He says, as a longtime third-party voter, we do not have the luxury of voting against, let's see, can I read the whole thing here? I have to put this out here for a second. Against major parties this time. This is existential. If you want to vote next time and be able to pretend it matters on any level, you must hold your nose and vote Harris this time. I look forward to getting back to calling out the Democrats on their right-wing anti-democracy nonsense. Unfortunately, now is not the time. All right, let's move on to that. Let's go to you, Brittany. Susie Lopez against Andrew Warren. You're living here in Tampa. I'm sure you're seeing these ads. Andrew Warren is getting hammered. There's no ads for Andrew Warren. There are tons of ads showing him as this irresponsible Soros-backed.
Are we talking about television ads? Because I've seen a number of Instagram ads for Andrew Warren. I think it's important to point out where you're
sure, and I've seen some direct mail actually against Warren as well. Obviously, Brittany, I'm sure you're a supporter of Susie Lopez. Let's ask you this, though. We were talking. I think right now, Republicans could have a big day Tuesday here in Hillsborough. We've seen the voter registration really moved your way, the Republican way, in the last few years. What are your thoughts in terms of that race and also just the Republicans overall on Tuesday night?
Right. So I'm actually an attorney, so I have been paying close attention to that race. Andrew Warren came and spoke to my Florida constitutional law class when I was in law school, and he actually talked a little bit about the case, what he was allowed to talk about. But I do think Susie Lopez would be obviously the best choice for state attorney, because we have seen, the ads where it talks about Andrew Warren not persecuting criminals and not doing his job, which is why the governor had him removed in the first place. And so if he was removed for not doing his job, then obviously we shouldn't elect him to do a job that he wasn't doing, is how I feel about it. But we'll see how the voters feel about it. We know that Hillsborough County is still a Democrat
Let me ask you this. If it still is, if Andrew Warren does win on Tuesday, do you believe that Ron DeSantis should just back off and respect the will of the voters and not try to suspend him again?
I think we should give him some time to see if he actually does his job. And if he continues doing or operating how he operated before, then I think the governor should step in. But we'll let him, if he wins, and let him do his job.
And we'll also guys see this on Tuesday with Monique Worrell in Orlando, right? She's also, just like Andrew Warren was suspended, I do think she's going to win. I mean, she's running against an NPA candidate because a Republican, he doesn't even want to be known as a Republican in that district. And we had that attorney on, you might remember.
The intrigue in that race is absolutely insane when you consider the lawsuits that are out and things like that.
Yeah, and we had the attorney on, if you remember, from a month and a half ago or so, who said that DeSantis' chief of staff, James Oltmeyer, said flat out,
get out of the race.
Well, he also said that if Monique Worrell wins, we're going to get her out. He did say that.
Because they needed Bain to finish second, so that if they suspended Worrell, the next person could come.
Right. So, Lars, go ahead.
On the Lopez-Warren race, yes, Lopez has probably tripled, if not quadrupled, the money that raised that Warren has. But it's going to also be still a little more of a referendum on DeSantis as well, because of the fact that the voters have reelected Warren twice, and he has won by the people's vote and then was removed by the governor, taking away the people's vote. And so we'll see how many people are paying attention to that and whether they will focus in on putting him back into office. But the other interesting thing is Susie Lopez will not answer the question as to whether she will honor the results of the election. In other words, that if Warren does win and the governor removes him again, would she take that slot back? She refuses to answer that, which does tell you a little bit of something.
I think, Lars, you have a good point there, but I will say that I've asked Susie that question. She did applaud Craig Latimer for running a fair election, so I think she would acknowledge the election results is true, but to your point about would she, be okay with DeSantis doing the same thing?
If DeSantis removed Warren again, would she take that job?
Yeah, she was here.
Yeah, she said she would.
Yeah.
I do think that this race it'll be a lot more interesting than it has been in the past, because as we know, a lot of people don't pay attention to these down ballot races, but because this one has garnered so much attention over the past couple of years, you might see a lot more people go out and vote who maybe they didn't vote for Andrew Warren the first time and that's why he won. A lot of Republicans probably didn't pay attention to this race. So we could see this would be a good chance to view voter turnout and how engaged voters actually are with down ballot races.
It will be because, supposedly one of the reasons former Tampa Police Chief, what's his name? Who was the former chief? Darn it, I can't remember now.
Mary O'Connor.
No, there's so many, but
Dugan.
Yeah, Dugan, who's really
Dugan. He loves
Andrew. Right, but it's about the protest of 2020, the George Floyd protest, and that Andrew was up for re-election in November of that, after all that, and he won by 6 points. So go figure. We just got a couple of minutes left to go here. Let's go to Jackie, who is calling in from Sarasota, wants to weigh in here. Jackie, good morning. Excuse me.
Good morning, Mitch. Can you hear me clearly?
We can, yes.
Okay. I'm calling to say that voting for Kamala is not voting for the lesser of two evils. It's a vote to empower women. And the more women that can have control of their lives and their bodies, that they can also be involved in government and help solve our problems, compared to, Trump, who wants to do whatever he wants, whatever he wants for women, whether they like it or not. I think his theme song should be the Stones song, Under My Thumb. And Kamala, put a woman in charge.
Thank you, Jackie. We should, somebody just wrote in, it says, curious about voters who ascribe so much power to Harris. She is vice president, a very limited role. Do they expect her to shove President Biden aside, foreign or economic policy? So, anyway.
Do you have a response to that, Carla? I'm curious to that caller.
Yeah, like in terms of people who would say, hey, there are women traveling hundreds of miles to get, health care. If we vote for Kamala, we have a chance to make their lives safer here locally.
Sure. I mean, if we look at it's really not about Kamala as an individual. I mean, because Kamala represents much more than just herself. I mean, when we say put a woman in charge, it's like, okay, put a woman as a CEO, put a woman as a landlord. It's like they're still doing damage to women in their role, whatever they're doing. So when we look at, the issue of abortion rights, we see the Democrats in Biden's first 2 years, they had the majority in the House and the Senate. And I don't want to hear any excuses, because there's been several times that that's happened when they could have codified abortion rights into law, and yet they didn't. And every single year they use it as a bargaining chip, and they say, this is the most important election of our lives. If you don't do it, women are going to lose all their rights. And it's like, well, that's happening under the Democrats. So I say all this to say that I'm not here to condemn anyone who's voting for Kamala, because it's only one day. But I am saying that we need to be working on securing our rights through independent movements, because that is the only way our rights have been secured in this country, is through regular people coming together and fighting for them, not the Democrats.
Thank you, Carla. We don't have any time. That was Carla Correa from the Democratic Socialists of America, also Brittany Wissey from the president of the Tampa Bay Young Republicans, and also Lars Hafner, former Democrat. Ray, we don't have enough time. I wanted to talk to you about your op-ed you wrote with Colin Wolfe about the Tampa Bay Times not endorsing in the presidential Senate races. It was a wild op-ed.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about the repercussions of that on Friday, because this election might not be resolved by then. There's a very good chance that we'll know a lot about the local races, but we could still be, have that, I appreciate the one election day is one day thing, but this thing has felt like it's been pretty long, man.
Yeah,
it's been a pretty long campaign season. We thank you guys so much for being tuned in with us here at WMNF Tampa. We love talking about this stuff with you. We love getting all the calls. Thank you, Irene Matthews, for handling the calls for us. Skip Sassy, thank you for running that board and all that Zoom. Joe Ellen is in Studio One with Art in Your Ear, which will be a little bit of a palate cleanser for the politics. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the other side of an election.